Glory be unto God most high. All glory be unto God. All glory be unto God most high, for there is no God but God. We begin in the name of God, the compassionate and merciful. All praises be unto the Most High God, the Lord of all creation, the compassionate and the merciful, master of the day of judgment. You alone do we worship. You alone do we seek our refuge. Guide us on the straight path, the path of those who thou hast blessed, not those who have incurred your wrath or those who have been led astray. Beloved, welcome again to the Ubuntu Fellowship Assembly. On this rainy Sunday, you probably hear the pitter pat of the raindrops on the sunroof here. But welcome again. I want to, because I have a few new followers, and I want to go ahead and I think it's good to explain what this is, what Ubuntu Fellowship Assembly is. Ubuntu Fellowship Assembly is an interfaith assembly. Um, while I am a Muslim, my wife is a Christian, and we believe firmly in the fact that God's truth endures in multiple spiritual paths, that God's truth endures in every area of spiritual thought, in science, in Christianity, in Buddhism, in Islam. And the purpose of this space is to create a safe space for different people of different religious backgrounds or people who don't have a religious background at all to talk about and discuss spiritual concepts. So while I am a Muslim, I am a Sufi, and I'll explain what Sufism is next Sunday. But the premise of Sufism is that we do not get caught up in religious doctrine. Okay, well, the purpose of life is to become one with God, and through the prism of unconditional love, we seek purification of heart and seeking of what that which is true. Now, um, before we had names for these different ideologies, it was just understood. When you look at older concepts of life and different spiritual thought, different philosophers, different ancient writings, it was just an understanding that we are one and that we should walk in and abide in that which is right and that which is true and that which brings harmony and balance. What has happened is that man has taken over with these religious doctrines and religious concepts. And so it is my purpose to extract out wisdom from these different spiritual avenues so that we can have a practical understanding regardless of our religious background. My goal is not to convert you to Islam. I mean, if you come to Islam, I mean, alhamdulillah. But if not, if Jesus brings you peace, I celebrate your peace. All right. I don't care what name you call God. I do care that we walk in unity and that we help each other and that we have a personal relationship with God. Okay? That is the purpose of Ubuntu Fellowship Assembly. And inshallah, God willing, I'm working on getting a physical space for us to meet so that we can actually be in front of each other and exchange ideas and concepts. Now, that I've gotten all that out the way, we are continuing our discussion on the principle of submission. We are continuing our discussion on the principle of submission. Now, uh, this is where God has led me to in the month of Ramadan. For those of y'all who don't know, in Ramadan we fast from sun up to sundown. We do not eat or drink. Uh, we concentrate on prayer and having upright conduct, even more being even more conscious of it. I mean, you're supposed to have upright conduct even outside of Ramadan, but being more conscious of it during this month. And so I want to talk to you all today about how we submit, how do we abide by what is right, and how we interact with each other. The first week we talked about personal submission, how I have to personally submit to that which is true within me at the mental, physical, and spiritual level. Submission means that I abide, I bend my will to that which is true and that what is right. Okay? This is what submission means. Submission does not mean that I bow down and that I'm less than or I'm subservient to a thing. When you submit to something, you bend your will, your mind, and your emotions to it. You bend your behavior to it. And you do not care. It's You separate what your opinion and your personal feelings. It doesn't matter how you feel, you abide by what is right. Okay? So submission brings peace. Submission is God's plan to give us order, balance, and peace. So even if you do not ascribe to a particular religion, beloved, I want you to understand that you must submit. You must have something that grounds you, that holds you together, especially during these perilous times. So last week, my wife and I, we discussed submission in marriage. And that video is still trending. So thank you all for those of you who have supported that. That resonated with a lot of you all. So glad that God was glorified and you all were edified by what was said. Today we're going to talk about how we submit in relation to other people. How do we submit? How do we practice submission in outside of the home? Because we have to interact with people, right? We can't get around it. We can't just live in a bubble and just stay at home. Even if you work from home, you have to know how to deal with people. You have to learn how to have tough skin but a tender heart at the same time. You have to learn how to engage with folks but not taking on whatever's going on with them. Because 9 times out of 10, if somebody is being ugly towards you and they have no reason or justification for doing so, first of all, let me correct myself. There is no reason or justification for us to be nasty towards each other. God forbids it. And we abide by the law of God despite how we feel. This is an act of submission. So sometimes people are rude and nasty, and sometimes we take that on. But a lot of times that it's something going on with them. It's not something that's going on with you. Sometimes we take on what's happening with someone else. And how someone else feels about me is none of my business. Somebody's opinion of me is none of my business. I don't want to be in somebody's head. I don't want to be living in somebody's head rent free. But sometimes people are going to be people. And so I want us to be able to fortify ourselves with some practical spiritual understanding so that regardless of how people treat us, we submit to the law of God as it relates to how we interact with other people. Okay? So let's first start with the first principle of order. Okay? Order, 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 order. The best example that I can give in regards to order is that order is, what did I write down? Because God gave it to me this morning. God's plan to crown our lives with peace. Order. Order is God's plan to crown our lives with peace. Regardless of whatever religious background that you have, when you have order, you have peace. Can we all agree there? All right? If you have order, you have peace. So we have to know what to submit to so that we have peace. The best example that I can give of this is that, during Ramadan, we have to be more intentional about our prayers and more sincere and intentional about how we pray and intentional of the words that we say. Whether you are praying verbally or whether you are just sitting in silence, meditation is beneficial. And one thing that I've noticed in Ramadan, we're in the second week of Ramadan, and it's crazy because the first couple of days, it's tough to fast. It's hard to fast. And then after a while, your body just grows adjusted to it. Your body will adjust to whatever you put it through. And it's a good thing to rise early and start your day, meditate, pray, stretch, get your day started. And I've noticed that just the part about waking up early and meditating, because outside of Ramadan, I'm not always good with waking up and praying in the morning, even though that this is a good thing, even though it's a good practice. But when I do it, I've noticed that you're not as stressed out. You're not as in a rush when you're going to work. You're not as pressured in the morning. It's tough. it's tough when, and you get so adjusted to rushing and the hustle and bustle of daily life that prayer forces us to stop, pause, thank God, sit in silence, meditate on the goodness of God, meditate on what we have and not what we don't have. Because, comparison is the thief of happiness. Prayer forces us to have order. Why? Because we must slow down and think and process what we do throughout our day. So you must have some type of daily regimen or routine. Do you have a daily routine, beloved? Do you have something that you do regularly every day that helps bring you peace and balance and harmony and order? This applies even within the work setting, okay? I know for me, getting to work on time, being punctual, abiding by what you're supposed to do at your job. Because if you're doing what you're supposed to be doing, you shouldn't have to be worrying about anybody checking for you or doing or micromanaging you. Go to work and do what you're supposed to do. Abide by what is true in your workplace. Abide by what is true as it relates to the people that ask you to do things that are within your line of authority. This gives us order. It gives us balance. And God honors the work that we do. There's a scripture in the Bible that talks about that our labor, that our work is not unto man, it is unto the Lord. That I do what is right in my workplace, not because I'm looking to impress anyone. I submit to God's law. And God's law requires that we submit to what is right in every aspect of our lives. The next area is wise speech. Wise speech, okay? Wise speech reduces confusion. Wise speech, let me move this over a little bit. Yeah. Wise speech reduces confusion. Knowing when to speak and when not to speak. And I mean, this is something that God is continually even teaching me. You don't have to comment on everything. You don't have to speak on everything. Sometimes it's good just to listen. Everything does not require. And I think even for myself, learning that I don't have to always defend myself, that I don't always have to, you don't always have to clap back. So it's a different type of discipline that your ignorance doesn't always require a response. And I think that that is something that even on social media you have to learn, because people get bold in what they say. So, the pitter patter of the rain is coming down. What happened? Somebody hit the hairdryer. Anyway, we're going to go to in the Quran, and I wanted to use a Quran verse because we're in the month of Ramadan, and I want to use a Quran verse. This is the way the wind blew me today. Woo, the rain is coming down. All right, so let's talk. Let's use the Quran, chapter 17, verse 53. Chapter 17, verse 53. Say unto my servants that they should say that which is most virtuous. In other words, whatever we say out of our mouths, and I know that this takes discipline, but whatever we say, we should be speaking virtuously, generously. Kind speech is important. Even I saw a post earlier that talked about the power of words. Remember, beloved, words do not have power in and of themselves. What gives words power is our meaning, our interpretation, the context of the word, and we give that. All right? So whatever words you use in your day-to-day speech with other people, be intentional about what you say or what you don't say. Okay? Because wise speech is an act of submission that crowns our life with reduced confusion. It reduces the amount of confusion when we exercise and submit to wise speech. Another verse that I want to share with you all is Quran 49:11. All right. And do not defame yourselves or insult one another with nicknames. How evil is the iniquitous name after having believed. And whosoever does not repent, they are the wrongdoers. O you who believe, shun much conjecture. Indeed, some conjecture is sin. And do not spy upon one another, nor backbite one another. Why is this important? And the thing about it is that whether you believe in the Quran or not, these are universal truths. Conjecture, gossip, um, talking about somebody without them being present to defend themselves. We've all done it. But is it good? Is it fruitful? Is it productive? All right? Regardless of if you adhere to a religious system or not, this is a universal truth that we should not insult one another, that we shouldn't backbite upon one another. Because remember, beloved, whatever you throw out will come back to you eventually. And none of us are above God's law. Absolutely none of us are above God's law. All right? So we must exercise wise speech in our day-to-day interactions with other people. We must submit to it. Sometimes itching ears, sometimes it can be entertaining even to engage in such talk. But remember, if you talk about somebody, eventually somebody's going to talk about you. And do you even want to be engaging with folk that have somebody else's name in their mouth all the time? I don't even like to be in the same room because it causes a certain level of confusion. And we all know that when you're in unproductive conversations, you get looped in to the same conversations and the same foolishness. Let's talk about grace, extending grace to others. Grace. All right. Grace is it builds emotional maturity. Ah, left out the emotional part. It builds emotional maturity. Be patient with people. Extend kindness. It doesn't cost anything to be kind, and every action does not require a reaction. All right. This is a universal truth. It is a universal truth. A universal truth. No matter what background you come from, no matter what religion you believe, it is a good thing to extend grace to others because it builds my emotional maturity. To think before I speak, to think before I react to someone. And I understand that that's hard. It's not the easiest thing to do, to hold my tongue, to hold my peace, because folks can be really ignorant and callous and mean. But we cannot lower ourselves down to being petty. It's it's not fun. It's not cool. God is not glorified in it, and it's beneath you. It's beneath you to be petty and vindictive. All right. Let's look at Surah 7:199 in the concept of grace and extending grace to others. And again, we're in the month of Ramadan, so I wanted to use some Quran scriptures to relay my point. And the importance of these different books is to extract out the wisdom that is within it. Okay? All right, whether you believe in the Quran or not, there is wisdom within all of these different books, and it is important. I believe it's imperative for us not to throw out the baby with the bathwater. I get it. A lot of people, religion has put a bad taste in people's mouths. But if you look into certain books, they show you universal truths that if you abide by them, it will give your life peace. All right? Uh, Submission is all about I sacrifice how I feel to do what is right. Okay? I sacrifice what I feel to do what is right. Okay? So let's see, Surah 199. Take to pardoning and enjoin right and turn away from the ignorant. All right? So in the commentary for this verse, the scholar said that this is one of many verses encouraging forbearance towards others. In other words, being patient, putting off my emotional response and being calculated, being intentional, and uh, lacing my words with love and gentleness and goodness. And nobody's perfect with this. I have not been perfect with this myself. All right. But this is what God requires of us. All right. Yeshua, Jesus, said the kingdom of heaven is within you. And what is the kingdom of heaven? Righteousness, peace, and joy in spirit, in interaction, in understanding. All right. So these things are within us. God's kingdom is within us, and we have the ability to bring it out. How do we bring it out? By acting in submission. We submit to what God asks us to do, regardless of how we feel, beloved. All right. So diligence. I'm sorry. Yes. Am I right? Grace. That was grace. Um, Take to pardoning. All right, and being patient with one another. What is meant here is forgiving and excusing people's failings of character and deed, and being gentle rather than harsh. All right. You catch more flies with honey than you do with vinegar. You can be saying something that's true, but your words and the manner in which you say it does not extend grace to someone. And so when we extend grace to someone, we don't give them what they deserve. We exercise patience. We don't match their energy. Matching energy is sometimes and a lot of times an act of emotional immaturity. Let's keep going. Diligence. Diligence is it helps sustain balance. Diligence sustains balance. So it's one thing to, at the beginning of the month, we started fasting, and then you have this big energy boost. Okay, I'm in the fast. I'm in the fast. We going. We're in the fast. But then after a while, you get hungry. You're tired. Your energy level waxes and wanes. And it takes time to actually remain steadfast with the regimen of intermittent fasting and meditation, prayer. And then through the diligence, through the consistency, we reap the benefits. Regardless of if you believe in a religion or not, I believe that we can all agree that when you are diligent with something, you reap the benefits long term. And some benefits do not come unless you are diligent over the long haul. All right? So we must be diligent. All right? So diligence and patience. This is the last principle that we're going to focus on today. Patience, 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 patience. Okay? So patience builds resilience in hardship. Patience builds resilience in hardship. The Arabic word for patience is sabr. So we ask God for patience in our day-to-day life to endure that which is uncomfortable. And patience is, I believe, one of the toughest ones because being patient without a clear understanding of when the discomfort will end is sometimes the hardest thing to do. Being patient in spite of not knowing when the end is going to be. Being patient and I can't see the finish line. Being patient even when I don't feel like it. This is an act of submission. All right? When we are patient with others, God empowers us to endure and builds our emotional security. All right? Because there's a certain comfort in knowing God's got me. All is well. Let me just be still. Let me hold my peace. And there is an emotional security that comes along with it. When we are anxious for things, the Bible speaks of be anxious for nothing, but in prayer and supplication to make your requests known unto God. All right, so patience is necessary. You cannot, and see, the principle of submission, and I know a lot of times this is something that is hard for a lot of people because, including myself, because we are taught to have instant gratification. We are hot-wired for instant gratification. But the truth is that sometimes you just have to be patient. Patience builds resilience in hardship. And patience and diligence actually run neck and neck together. All right? Because it takes diligence to be patient over the long haul. Right? All right? So in order for me to get a farmer has to be diligent and and exercise patience in order to reap a bountiful harvest. All right? So I have to be patient with other people, diligent in my patience, extend grace towards others, and exercise wise speech while maintaining a regimen that produces and sustains order. All right? I'm going to read this one last scripture from the Quran, and it's chapter 103. And chapter 103 is actually very short. We're going to read this, and then I'm going to let you go. All right, I'm going to trying to keep you too long on this Sunday. By the declining day, truly mankind is in loss, save those who believe. Perform righteous deeds, exhort one another to truth, and exhort one another to patience. By the declining day. So this is talking about the end of an era, or the declining, the decline of humanity, which we are seeing. We're seeing the decline within this country, moral decline, political decline, economic decline. We're seeing things are falling apart all around us. And so how do we maintain our peace with others? Now, we've already talked about how to maintain peace within ourselves, but we cannot live life and not expect to interact with other people, and we have to do so in a healthy way. And in order to do that, I must perform righteous deeds, exhort one another to truth, and exhort one another in patience. In other words, do what is right. I had one of my Christian friends, he had said to me, Muslims are all about, doing good deeds, and they're trying to earn their way into heaven. You can't earn your way into heaven. You can't do good deeds to get your way into heaven. Beloved, I want to say this, and I want to be very clear with it. I'm not doing good deeds or performing righteous deeds or doing what is right because I'm trying to get to heaven. I do what is right because God commands me to do so. And it pleases me to do what is right and to honor God. I'm not trying to earn my way into heaven. That's not my goal. And in learning the principle of submission, which is what Islam means, we submit before what is right, not because we're trying to get something from God. We submit to what is right because God commands us to do so. And it pleases us. It pleases us to do what is right. It pleases us to because our natural posture of our heart is to do what is right, even when right doesn't always feel right. And remember what I have shared with you before. We submit to the will of God, and the will of God is to do what is right. And if we question what is right, we seek what is true. If we're unclear about what is the right thing to do, we seek what is true. And I think that this is important because in day-to-day living, I'm not trying to earn my way into heaven. As a matter of fact, I'm not really concerned that much about it at all. Because if you do what is right in this life, the next life will take care of itself. And one thing that I want you to be mindful of, beloved, is that one of the things that we support here at the Ubuntu Fellowship Assembly is unity and truth through different lenses of perspective. There are people in other parts of the earth that the Quran is all they know, and yet and still they apply the principles of truth within it, and they get peace. This is a fact. I'm not asking your opinion about this. This is a actual fact. There are people who are neither Christian or Muslim, and they apply a similar principle of truth that talks about order, wise speech, grace, diligence, and patience, and they reap peace. Why? Because these are spiritual principles. All right? I'm reciting things from the Quran, but what is here is actually found in other books, in different realms of study, in different realms of philosophy, in different interactions, just day-to-day interactions. If religion never touched us, and somebody said that it is a good thing to have a daily regimen, a daily routine that gives your life order. Exercise wise stewardship with your mouth, with the words that you say. Wise speech. Extend grace to others. Build your emotional maturity. You don't always have to respond. You don't always have to react. Exercise diligence. You must be diligent in whatever you do. You cannot just start and stop and start and stop and start and stop. You have to maintain a certain level of consistency if you want to reap benefits in this life. And that also includes patience. If I exercise all these things in my interactions with others, then do I not get peace? Is this not something that brings my life peace? All right? So, perform righteous deeds. Exhort one another to truth. Build each other up in what is true. God's truth endures to every generation. God's truth endures to every generation. So God has allowed the light of truth not to be snuffed out. Every generation that has come before us has spoken a similar knowledge of truth, that we must have order, a daily routine with others that maintains peace. Okay? And we see this commonly in the workplace and within the home, having roles within the home, having an understanding of who's doing what. Last week I talked about my wife giving my children chores to do so that they have assignments, that they have understanding of this is how I contribute to the balance within the home. What you do within your workplace, doing your job, doing it with integrity when no one is around. And you trust God to take care of the rest, because our work is unto who? The Lord. I don't do what I do to impress other people. I do what I do because I honor God in my work. And in doing so, you will naturally attract people that are on the same vibration as you. Because remember, the law of attraction states that you attract what you are, not what you want. You attract what you are, not what you want. So if you're engaging in idle gossip and conjecture, which the Quran speaks against, and which honestly, without the Quran, we know that conjecture And talking too much does not lead us to peace. So we must submit to wise speech. You don't always have to say the first thing that comes to your mind. You don't always have to say everything that you feel like saying. Hold your tongue. Bridle your tongue. All right? So that you might be pleasing to God in how you interact with other people. Extend grace. Stop being petty. Stop matching people's energy. It does not please God. And you are you are disobeying a divine order, a divine law. Regardless of what name you call God, we have to abide and submit to certain principles of truth. It is true that we must extend grace to others. Okay? Because God is the ultimate judge and will bring balance to all things. So if somebody has wronged you, there will be balance. God is master of the day of judgment. So one popular song by Yolanda Adams is, "The battle ain't yours, it's the Lord's." We are responsible for abiding by the law of God and submitting to what God has told us to do. Diligence, it helps sustain balance, and patience builds resilience in hardship. Beloved, if you have stayed with me on this video, thank you so much for lending me your time. I hope that what was said resonated with you and gave you some practical things that you can take in your day-to-day living. And until next time, beloved, God's peace be upon you always.